You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. There's a kind of loneliness that isn't about being alone. It's about feeling that no one truly sees you. It's quiet, stealthy, and often shows up at the most unexpected moments. It can happen while you're scrolling through social media, surrounded by virtual friends, or when you try to explain what you feel and receive empty advice in return. Loneliness is a pain the world doesn't like to face. We prefer to distract ourselves, to pretend it doesn't exist. But it does, and it's closer than we imagine. In this video, we're going to open a door few have the courage to touch, not with stock phrases or magic solutions, but with raw truths. Some may hurt, others will set you free, because loneliness, though painful, carries hidden messages that can change everything. We'll explore 5 truths that are rarely spoken, but that you need to hear. Because while the world tries to convince you that loneliness is weakness, maybe it's the beginning of a new strength. You'll discover why we feel lonely, even beside those we love, why the constant pursuit of connection drains us, and what loneliness might be trying to teach you, even when everything looks dark. Throughout this video, we'll dive deep into the human soul. With real stories, visual metaphors, and practical applications, you'll see loneliness with new eyes, not to accept it as a sentence, but to understand what it hides. Because when you understand, something inside you starts to change, and what was once pain can turn into clarity. But before we begin with the first truth, I'll leave you with a question. When was the last time you felt truly seen? Not heard, not tolerated, seen. If that question stirs something in you, it might be because there's a part of you crying out for connection, and no one ever taught you how to listen to it. The first truth about loneliness isn't about absence, but about something much deeper, something that begins now. It's strange to think that some of the loneliest people in the world are married, have children, go out with friends every week. But here's the first uncomfortable truth. Being surrounded by people doesn't erase loneliness when you feel disconnected from yourself. Many live encircled by others, yet feel like extras in their own lives, as if everything were a theater, and no one truly sees who's behind the mask. Loneliness often springs from the absence of meaning. It's not about the quantity of interactions, but the depth of connection. It's about feeling that your existence matters to someone, and most of all, to you. Imagine someone who works every day, fulfills every obligation, goes to parties, chats on social media, but when they lay their head on the pillow, they feel a void they can't explain. That person could be you. It could be someone you love. The emptiness doesn't come from the absence of company, but from the absence of true presence. Being seen goes far beyond a look. It's when your pains, dreams, and questions aren't ignored. When there's space to be who you are without having to fit into molds. Without that, the soul grows sick, even surrounded by voices. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that a human being can endure any pain as long as they find meaning. The loneliness that hurts most isn't being alone at home. It's living a life that doesn't speak to your soul. When your days feel like nothing but automatic tasks, your heart begins to dim. That's why loneliness appears even in steady relationships or stable jobs. Because what keeps someone alive isn't routine, it's purpose. And when purpose is lost, everything loses flavor. Even hugs feel cold. So how do you find that meaning? First, you need to quiet the external noise. and listen to what you've been trying to muffle. It might be an old desire, a forgotten talent, an undigested pain. Meaning is born when we align with something bigger than just surviving. It might be to create, to serve, to learn, to heal. Each person has a calling, and it usually whispers, it never shouts. The practice is to allow yourself moments of pause and listening, to ask, honestly, what makes me feel alive? And from there, rebuild, even if it's slow, even if it hurts at first. When you connect with a purpose, no matter how small it seems, loneliness changes color. It doesn't vanish overnight, but it starts making room for real encounters. You begin to attract those who resonate with your truth, not your performance. And then the loneliness that used to be despair turns into solitude, a sacred space where you can exist whole. But there's a second truth that makes this even harder, and it involves an invisible trap most people fall into without realizing it. There's a disguised anxiety in those who seek connection incessantly. It's as if the heart were saying, see me, hear me, love me. But with every attempt, the response is silence, and it hurts. The problem is that the more we try to fill the void with forced interactions, the farther we get from real connection. It's like drinking salt water. It seems to relieve at first, but only increases the thirst. The second uncomfortable truth about loneliness is that it doesn't resolve by trying to run away from it, but by facing what it's revealing. I met a young woman who, after a breakup, dove into dating apps. She said she just wanted to talk, but found herself increasingly drained and empty. With every conversation that ended in silence, the feeling of rejection grew. Until, one day, she realized it wasn't neediness, it was fear of listening to herself. And that emptiness could only be welcomed, not force-filled. When we try to use people as emotional anesthesia, loneliness intensifies. Because deep down, we know that connection isn't real, and that hurts us even more. One of the important things to learn from loneliness, it forces us to stop, to listen to the echo of what we avoid. But we live in a time that idolizes distraction. We were taught that being alone is failure, so we feel guilty when we have no plans for the weekend, for example. This silent pressure creates a vicious cycle. The more we run from loneliness, the more it chases us. And the more it chases us, the more we try to smother it with distractions. Until one day, we no longer know who we are without the other. And that's where the wound deepens. But there is a different path. Stop chasing. Not as someone who gives up, but as someone who returns inward. When you begin making peace with your own company, something almost magical happens. You stop accepting emotional crumbs. Self-connection changes the vibration with which you relate to the world. And, curiously, it's in that state that true connections appear. Because you're no longer trying to prove your worth, you're simply being whole. But this takes us to the third truth, even more uncomfortable. Loneliness is often fed by what you believe about yourself. Not by what the world does, but by what you've accepted as truth. And that changes everything. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't arise from external silence, but from inner dialogue. Many times, we believe we're excluded, rejected, or invisible. But in truth, it's we who repeat internal narratives that reinforce that pain. It's like wearing sunglasses on a sunny day. The light is there, but the world seems darker than it really is. When you believe you don't deserve to be loved, any small gesture becomes proof of your hypothesis. If someone takes long to reply, You read it as rejection. If someone doesn't invite you, it confirms abandonment. And so, loneliness isn't created by others, but by distorted interpretations we construct within ourselves. Think of a child who grew up hearing, "You're hard to handle." Years later, as an adult, they carry that sentence like an invisible tattoo. In every friendship, every romantic relationship, every work meeting, the inner story whispers, "No one will understand you." The result: the person pulls away before even trying to get close. Loneliness, in this case, isn't a consequence of others, but of the belief that shapes every interaction. The world responds to the tone in which you present yourself, and if the tone is fear, withdrawal, and distrust, there will hardly be room for real bonds. Psychology calls this a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you believe something will happen, you unconsciously behave in ways that lead it to come true. Those who believe they don't deserve love sabotage relationships. Those who believe they have no voice remain silent. Those who believe they'll be abandoned build barriers to avoid getting too involved. And in the end, the loneliness we fear so much is built with our own hands. It's hard to accept that responsibility, but it's also liberating, because if we help direct that prison, we can find the key. But how do you change a story that seems to have been written years ago? It's neither simple nor quick. It begins with awareness, identifying the voice that repeats old narratives. Then, you need to question it. Is this fact, or just interpretation? A powerful exercise is to write down those automatic phrases, and alongside them, write more realistic alternatives. Not shallow positive affirmations, but new truths that make room. Example: swap "nobody understands me" for "maybe I haven't yet found someone who can listen to me the right way." That small change opens cracks in the inner prison, allowing light to enter. Here's the turning point. When you change the story you tell yourself, loneliness loses some of its strength, because it stops being a sentence and becomes an invitation to transformation. But there's still a fourth truth that deeply unsettles us. Loneliness isn't only internal. It's also the consequence of a world increasingly disjointed that trades depth for superficiality. And that drags us into a collective wound we need to face head-on. Never in human history have we been so connected, and never have we felt so isolated. It's a contradiction that defines our time. Hundreds of contacts in your phone, thousands of followers online, and yet, the feeling that there's no one to call in a moment of despair. This is the fourth truth about loneliness. It's not only individual, but a social symptom. We created tools to bring us closer, but paradoxically, they often widen the distance. Because likes aren't hugs, comments aren't deep conversations. Quick messages can't replace the shared silence between two people who truly understand each other. A clear example of this is the habit of posting to be validated. Many people share every detail of life, not to record memories, but to be reminded they exist. The problem is that this validation lasts seconds. The like comes, dopamine spikes, and soon the emptiness returns, even bigger. It's like eating sugar when your body needs real food. It tricks the hunger, but doesn't nourish. Digital loneliness works like that. An illusion of connection that doesn't meet the deepest human need, to be truly recognized. Recent studies show that chronic loneliness can be as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And yet, we live in a culture that normalizes emotional isolation. We work alone in front of screens, relate more by messages than by looks, and confuse digital proximity with real intimacy. This creates a silent epidemic, a world where everyone seems connected, but few feel they truly belong. The price is high. Anxiety, depression, and even physical illnesses associated with social stress. But there is a way to break this dynamic. It isn't abandoning technology, but redefining how we use it. It's choosing moments of real presence, turning off the phone at the dinner table, scheduling meetups without digital distractions, practicing unhurried listening. It's surprising how small gestures can restore the sense of bond. A deep conversation on a walk, an unhurried hug, a gaze that doesn't drift toward the screen. Social loneliness isn't cured with more digital connections, but with fewer distractions and more truth. And here's the fifth truth, perhaps the hardest to face. Even with every effort to connect with others, loneliness never disappears completely. And that isn't a curse, but a reminder of something essential we need to understand before we close this journey. Think of loneliness as a shadow. You can walk toward the light, but the shadow will always be behind you, reminding you that it exists. Some try to run from it by filling every second with distractions, social media, superficial conversations, endless commitments. But in the silence of the night, when the world slows down, that shadow reappears. And at that point, many believe they've failed. But the truth is, it's not about eliminating loneliness. It's about learning to live with it without letting it define us. Because loneliness is also a reminder that we're human, that we need true bonds, and that we also need to learn to be enough for ourselves sometimes. If, instead of fighting it, you can look at loneliness as a silent teacher, you'll start to see what really matters. Authenticity in the bonds you build, and the courage to be with yourself without fear. If we've made it this far, you've already noticed, loneliness isn't just the absence of people. It's the absence of meaning, of true presence, of deep connection with yourself and others. It's a quiet pain, one many hide behind smiles, posts, and busy routines. But it's also an invitation to stop running and start listening to what it has to say. Loneliness, though cruel, can be the doorway to a more authentic life. I want to ask you, which of these truths touched you the most? Share in the comments. Your experience may help someone who, right now, feels alone on the other side of the screen. Because even though our pains are individual, it's in the act of sharing them that we discover we aren't so alone after all. And if you feel this journey opened something inside you, my invitation is simple. Don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you know needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and be part of this community that believes in emotional growth, truth, and transformation. Here, no one needs to pretend they're okay. Here, we talk about what most people prefer to keep quiet, because only then do we create a space where being human isn't a flaw, it's power. And if loneliness revealed something you didn't want to face, there's a next step. Often, loneliness is tied to hurts we've never healed, and that's where forgiveness comes in. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's liberation. That's why the next video will open this journey even further. It's not about justifying that someone hurt you. It's about lifting the weight off your heart. And remember,